I was having a conversation with a coaching client the other day, and he was explaining to me how he was able to help this expired listing get back on the market and get it sold. And he explained to me something that we talk about all the time within inside of our coaching community that I want to share with you guys today. That's really, really important. It has to do with price bracketing and what we call an active buyer analysis. And when I tell you this story, I think that it will help you to do two things. Number one is to have more confidence when you go into a listing presentation and recommend a pricing strategy to get your client's home on the market and get it sold. And then number two is to look at potentially your current listing inventory that maybe isn't selling and perhaps give you some more clarity to what you can do, the communication you can have with the seller to get it sold, right? Because that's what we are in the business of, is to list and to sell the property. So let me share my screen. I'm going to show you exactly what happened so that you can hopefully get a really good learning from this. All right, so here was the situation, okay? So he was going after this expired listing, all right? And it had expired 2 times with 2 previous agents. The first agent had this on the market for $499,000, and then that was the first agent. Second agent had it on the market for $479,900. Now, both of those are a massive mistake, because the first concept I want to teach you guys today is what we call price bracketing. You see, the problem with both of these models, in which we see all too often, is the agent, maybe he or she just doesn't know what they don't know, but you're going to learn something different here. The problem with this is, let's look at the first one for a second, okay? Both of these actually are looking for, you can make the argument, a $500,000 buyer. They're both looking for a $500,000 buyer, right? If you're priced at $499, you're priced at $480, you're looking for that $500,000 buyer. Well, okay, fine. The first concept we have to look at is price bracketing. And this is how it works. So when we think about, okay, how do buyers actually search for homes for sale? Whether they're searching by themselves on some type of real estate portal, or you yourself, how are you setting up your clients inside of the MLS to receive listings? Well, we typically send them homes in $25,000 brackets, right? We don't send them listings in weird off numbers. We never send listings to people that, as an example, would be, we'll call it $479,525 to $502,625. You've never set up a buyer on a search like that in the MLS, nor do buyers search for homes like that online. No, what do? Well, in this case, we'll just take this example of this $500,000 buyer. There's a couple of price brackets, but just for the sake of time, I won't go through all of them. But, an option could be that they look at homes between $450,000 and $500,000, right? Even numbers. They could be looking at homes between $500,000 to $550,000, perhaps, right? And here's the issue. This is just a quick example why this story makes so much sense. And when he got the feedback from the seller, which I'll get to at the end, you'll say, wow, that does make a lot of sense. Here's the issue. If a property is, in this case, it expired at $499,000, remember, that seller, that listing agent, is looking for what? A $500,000 buyer, right? We just said that. Well, for buyers that are searching for homes with inside $450,000 to $500,000, that property certainly would show up inside that search, wouldn't it? Because it's at $499. It would show up in that search online. However, they're looking for the $500,000 buyer. And where it would not show up, in other words, if the potential buyer puts in a search that starts at $500,000 to $550,000, this property then would not show up because it's priced at $499. Well, what's the solution? The solution would have been to price this property at $500K. So it shows up not just in one buyer pool, but it shows up in both buyer pools. That agent then can double the amount of exposure that a property gets, increasing the likelihood that it will sell. Because, and that's just an example, I just want you to understand price bracketing. This video is not about price bracketing. This video is about doing a simple active buyer analysis. Let me show you how this comes into play. So let's look at it. So let's look at the active buyer analysis. All right. So here's how this works. You can simply do this with inside of your MLS. And here's what we do for every single time we list a home, so that we know with certainty. We're not guessing. We're not looking at old sold data. It doesn't make any sense. That's the difference between an appraisal and what it is that you and I do. You see, we take the active buyers that are in the marketplace right now, out there searching for homes, and we position our listings in such a way that appeals to the buyers now, not to what happened in the past. But we put our listings in front of the people that are looking to purchase a home now. Doesn't that make a lot more sense? So we do a simple active buyer analysis that will show us where are the active buyers. Now, here's the problem with the scenario that we're talking about. This property that was listed at $499 before, or $479, either one of two issues happen. Either the agent wasn't willing to tell, two agents weren't willing to tell the seller the truth, which happens all the time. They'd rather get the listing, get their sign in the front yard, but more times than not, they aren't willing to tell the seller the truth. So they tell the seller that they could sell the house at a price that they know they can't sell it at in hopes to get the listing. Well, in this case, it happened twice. So here's what happened. The agent which I coach did an active buyer analysis. And here's what he found. So of all of the buyers, we'll say, okay, if there is 20 buyers is the total market segment, 20 buyers in this market that are looking at homes between $400,000 and $500,000. Let's just say that there's 20. Okay, you learn that based on the active buyer analysis. Here's what the agent that I coached found. He found that when he looked at the first bracket, which is 400 to 425, that he had a large pool of buyers here. It was about 30%. Then in the next bracket, between 425 and 450, there was 60% of these buyers right here fell in that pool. And then as he went to 450 to 475, he had, there was 5%. And then D, 475 to 500K, he had another 5%. That's what his active buyer analysis showed him, right? So in other words, the most amount of his buyers were right in this pool. Now, the previous agent had listed this obviously too high, but the question is, well, where should it have been priced? Well, based on price bracketing, what we just talked about, right? The agent in which I coached listed the house at 450K. Well, why did he do that? Well, he wanted to show up. Let's just look at it. He wanted to show up in this bracket. He wanted to show up in this bracket. He also wanted to show up in the buyers that searched between 400 and 450. He also wanted to show up in the search that people often look at, is 450 to 500. And he also wanted to show up in a search between 450 and 550. So just by simple price bracketing, he now shows up in not one, not two, three, four, but 5 possible price brackets for this property. Now, this had been on the market for 90 days with this agent and 90 days with this agent. They did not sell it. 6 months this was on the market. It did not sell. We put the property, we positioned at 450, where we know the most of the buyers in this area are searching for homes right now based on the active buyer analysis. Well, what happened? In 2 days, he got multiple buyers. Why? Because all the buyers are living here. So he put the property, that was an amazing home, he positioned it in the right bracket based on data, not emotion, right? We explained this to the seller. Seller says, that makes a lot of sense. Now he's appealing to where most of the buyers are. And of course, it's a simple supply and demand issue. When he puts his property priced at 450 inside of the right bracket, that property now becomes what? The obvious choice. He gets multiple offers, and as a result, ends up selling the house for $465 in 2 days. In 2 days. And not to mention, both of these agents, okay, the first time it was on the market because of the newness, got an offer at $427, was the highest offer they got. That's what the seller told the agent. This was the highest offer that they got when they were on the market before. Now we position the home in the right bracket, and we can clearly see how do we get a premium for the homes in which we list. It all comes down to our ability to position the home in the right price bracket using price bracketing and an active buyer analysis. So this is what I'm going to leave you with. As you go out there into the marketplace, rather than solely base your pricing recommendation off of solds, like a lot of agents do, like an appraiser would do, we have to take what is active on the market. This is the seller's active competition. We have to take that into consideration. And then number two, we have to be doing active buyer analysis before we go and recommend a price, because the active buyer analysis will show us of all the buyers that would potentially buy my client's home. I need to see, as the agent, as the expert, as the market expert, as the market authority, I need to find out, where does this property belong? Where do I have to position it based on the supply, based on the active buyers in the marketplace? And I can position this home based on analyzing the competition, based on analyzing the supply for this home. It becomes clear this property needs to be placed in this bracket. And when I do this correctly, the home sells quickly and you look like the hero. So I'm hoping that this makes sense. If you have questions about this strategy, certainly throw them in the comments. And then before you go, you can grab my brand new script book. I just dropped it. There's a link in the description below. And then let me know what questions you guys have about either price bracketing or the active buyer analysis. And we'll see you guys in another video very soon.